seepage bed. So, F, please. A little bit of history. This is around 2003. In 1999, and Dr. Mogan had a task force, and they put in that playground the current location of the apparatus. Immediately after that, we had some drainage problems. And then the items that we identified up there with the Dale Lane drainage coming through the athletic field, then we had some issues with the drainage coming off of that playground apparatus, creating high concentrations of flow, rendering that field unusable for days, sometimes weeks. Also, we've always had a problem along Kershaw, the lower area. Now, this is why, or one of the reasons we've had the problem. Remember that drainage area starts at around Brookhaven Road. That's about 40 feet higher than the entranceways of the school off of Kershaw. So any groundwater movement or migration, even if it's 10 feet below grade up at Brookhaven Road, starts to surface down around our site. This was the condition of that parking lot off of Kershaw, and this was for the longest time, and the maintenance group pumped lots of money into this to try to repair it. And then finally in 2003 we had a major improvement program, and I'll explain that program. In 1999 we spent about $60,000 to correct the playground, plus about $20,000 in soft cost reports and studies to identify those off-site drainage conditions. In 2002, the modular classrooms were put in, and we did put some stormwater in for that, which helped. Now, in 2003, the school district embarked upon a significant program of paving and drainage, and most of it included the remediation of the drainage down along Kershaw. If you want to go to the one above. Yeah, the picture above. Thank you. Keep going. That's perfect. What we did was that current parking lot off of Kershaw has a subsurface seepage bed. And it also has a perimeter French drain with a series of pipes and inlets that now take that water underground, recharge the groundwater system, which, by the way, today is a best management practice in stormwater, and conveys it to the inlets off of Kershaw Lane. And the total cost between 1999 and 2003 was over $250,000, basically to correct these drainage problems, primarily off-site drainage problems. G, please. This was the conditions of the children's playground in 1999. This was primarily caused by the apparatus, the toy apparatus playground above before we made the improvements. And you can see that is what you call a classic case of accelerated erosion. Erosion is a natural process. When there are man-made provisions that accelerate it, that is what was the results. Next one, please. And that was the playground, and that was what that playground did as far as diverting flow, which you saw go through the playground. Next, please. That would be, yes. Oh, nope, the other one. I'm sorry. H. Okay, H. Yes. Oh, is that it? That's the last one? Okay, good. Okay. Now, if you would, the subdivision land development, please. Okay. Now, before we talk about costs, I want to just paint the picture of the difference between a building permit review and a land development review. Anyone that's had a home addition knows it's no different between a home addition and a school that the code enforcement department reviews the plan. It is basically a one-stop entity of maybe a third-party inspection firm reviewing those plans to make sure they're in compliance with the international building codes. With land development, far different, much more difficult, many times frustrating, many times a lot of conflicting priorities. This is an example for no matter which site we embark upon, the fact that we are zoned residential, both sites, and that we are used as an institution requires us to at least go through the zoning approval process. And then each of these blocks, if you will, is an entity: the Planning Commission, the Commissioners, the Delaware County Conservation, Delaware County Planning Commission. If there's a PennDOT road, PennDOT's involved. Then there's sewer modules through DEP. If it's larger than 1 acre, the Conservation District triggers what's called MPDES. And the process goes on, and each entity has a chance to write a comment letter, which has to be reviewed and responded to by the applicant. In the case of stormwater, for example, Chapter 281, there's a section in there, Section 4, that says that the commissioners may require the applicant to provide correction measures for any existing off-site drainage conditions. Of course, that is reasonable corrective measures that may affect the project. Now, that is a very open-ended, subjective type of statement, and that type of language is also in the subdivision land development ordinance for traffic, for example. So although an engineering firm may need to review that 150 pages of stormwater and 60 pages of land development plus the zoning, there is still much subjectivity and much unknown until you start to iterate and go back and forth between the different reviewing entities. Thank you. Now with that said, let me just review a few things. Summit is the larger site, 10 acres. 2 of those acres are wetlands, so it's about 8 acres. West is 5.2 acres. The building at Summit is on the low ground, the location of where drainage flows. The building at West is on the higher ground, which makes it more convenient to predict where you're going to put that stormwater, and the closer you can put it to the existing building features, the less the cost. Summit has on it a FEMA-identified flood area in Dix Run. West does not. The building location of Summit, although Dr. Ruby showed a conceptual plan, is very conceptual because the stormwater variables, the site constraints at Summit may move that thing higher, may move it closer into the soccer field. If we don't get adequate percolation for stormwater, we may have to put an above-ground system in, moving it even farther away from Plush Mill Road. And finally, when you have a larger site, your site infrastructure requirements are simply larger. For example, the Summit site existing has the footprint is 33,700 square feet of building, 73,000 square feet of paving. That's about 8,000 square yards of paving. Now, the paving is going to be redone at the Summit site. So 8,000 square yards at a typical unit price of $50 a square yard is $400,000. The West site has about 68 or 69,000 square feet of existing paving. Well, let's just say it has the same. It has 73,000 it's 8,000 yards. Well, we're not going to basically affect the lower paving. Roughly half that paving is on the Kershaw Road side, where about 32,000 square feet of it is up on Providence Road. We have no intentions of redesigning egress or ingress to that site, but let's just say we resurface it because it's going to get somewhat destroyed during construction. So again, 8,000 square yards. If you resurface it $10 a square yard, that's $80,000. So you got $400,000 on one side, and you have $80,000 on the other side. The cost is significant. On top of that, curbing. You're going to need about 2,000 feet of curbing at Summit, and curbing is about $35 a lineal foot. That's $70,000. We can't see a significant amount of curbing on the Summit site.